Hello, I'm Addison Pollock, Director of Community Engagement with AARP Indiana. Thanks for joining us and participating in this telephone town hall to talk about fraud and scams and what AARP and the United States Congress are doing to fight back. Today's event is well timed as April is AARP's Fraud Prevention Month, a nationwide effort to raise awareness about fraud and scams happening across the country, as well as the information and resources that can protect you. This teletown hall is hosted by AARP Indiana, and I'm pleased to welcome our special guests, Congresswoman Houchin. We're also joined by Clark Flint Barr, AARP Government Affairs Director on Financial Security. Today's event is an interactive call, so if you would like to ask a question at any time, press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you'll be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and place you in our queue. The sooner you press *3, the sooner you'll be online with our guests. I also like to recommend grabbing a paper and pen so you can jot down notes during the call. So let's begin by setting the stage for today's conversation. In 2026, financial scams have reached crisis levels, threatening the security and dignity of all Americans 50 plus and their families. It can have destabilizing effects on entire communities. In particular, the rise of fraud has a disproportionate impact on older adults, often causing losses in life savings, homes, and peace of mind. These crimes are perpetuated by sophisticated transnational criminal networks, and the stolen funds, which are often never recovered, undermine local economies and fuel illicit activities abroad. When it comes to fighting fraud, AARP is your wise friend and fierce defender. AARP's advocacy is driven by the urgent need to protect consumers, support victims, and advance policy solutions that hold perpetrators accountable. Before I hand things over to Congresswoman Houchin for her opening statement, I want to briefly spotlight two ways AARP is working for you. As a wise friend, I encourage listeners on the call to explore AARP's Fraud Watch Network. It's a free resource that offers up-to-date alerts, education, and fraud prevention tools, including our fraud specialist helpline, scam tracking map, and articles to help consumers stay informed. You can learn more at aarp.org/fraud. As a reminder, you do not need to be an AARP member to utilize this resource, so please share with your friends and family. Lastly, I want to note that Indiana is leading the way on fraud prevention, thanks to the combined efforts of AARP Indiana, state leaders, and local law enforcement. Earlier this month, Governor Braun signed House Enrolled Act 1116, which bans the operation of virtual currency kiosks in Indiana, a major source of crypto-related scams that cost Americans more than $333 million last year. This first-in-the-nation ban reflects the commitment of AARP Indiana and state leaders to securing the strongest consumer protections possible during this recent state legislative session. So as your fierce defender, we will continue to work to secure the most robust protections possible for you and your family at every level of government. All right. So with that, I now want to once again thank our special guest, Congresswoman Houchin, for joining us, and would like to invite her for opening remarks. Congresswoman, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Addison, and thank you to AARP Indiana for hosting this event today. This has been a pleasure to be working with the AARP since my time in the state legislature. This issue matters deeply to me. Fraud is a big issue for constituents in the southeast part of the state and across Indiana and around the country. More than 50 million Americans have lost money to scams, and older Americans are often the primary targets. The criminals behind these schemes are organized, they're sophisticated. In many cases, they're operating outside the country overseas. That's why one of the main reasons why this has been a priority of mine in Congress. I am a member of the bipartisan Stop Scams Caucus, and last fall I introduced the Strategic Task Force on Scam Prevention Act with a Democrat colleague of mine. Our bill brings together the Department of Justice, the Federal Trade Commission, banks, tech companies, social media platforms, states attorneys general, and law enforcement to create a coordinated national strategy to detect and stop scams before they happen. I was also encouraged to see President Trump take action this month by establishing a task force to eliminate fraud. That kind of whole government approach is exactly what this problem requires. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and I've been pushing for more accountability from big tech. We sent a letter to Meta asking what they are doing to stop scammers from using their platforms to target Americans. This would also extend to our email platforms as well. This work is making a difference, but there is more work to do. I was honored recently to be recognized as a fraud fighter by the Consumer Bankers Association, and I intend to keep pushing until we will see real results toward addressing what is a growing problem, particularly with the threat of AI. At the end of the day, this is really just about protecting people. No one should have to worry about losing their hard-earned savings to a scammer, and I'm going to keep fighting to make sure they don't.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. We really appreciate those remarks. I want to remind everyone, if you've just joined us, my name's Addison Pollock. I'm the Director of Community Engagement with AARP Indiana. You are joining today's call with Congresswoman Houchin. We're talking about protecting consumers from fraud and scams. As a reminder, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time during this call if you'd like to ask a question, or if you have a quick story you'd like to share about your experience with fraud and scams. An AARP staff person will take your name and your question and put you in the queue to ask your question live. Congresswoman, we do have a couple of minutes while our listeners are queuing up questions. So I have one to start our conversation. You mentioned in your remarks, you serve as a member of the new bipartisan Congressional Stop Scams Caucus. Can you tell us more about the caucus, its origins, its mission, and if there's any current legislation that you all are considering that impact Hoosiers 50 plus?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yes, the Stop Scams Caucus was really formed as an effect of all of the newest threats from scammers. This has been an emergent issue, but with AI, deep fakes, video fakes now, this is becoming a greater and greater threat. So we wanted to be engaged with the Stop Scams Caucus. One of those bills I mentioned was the Strategic Task Force on Fraud and Scam Prevention, bringing together all of our federal stakeholders to try to tackle this problem. I would say that one of the issues that we face in trying to fight scams and fraud is the very disparate systems, the holes, if you will, in how we tackle this and how everything is really in different silos, and these different agencies are not working in a coordinated fashion. And that's what the bill and the Strategic Task Force is designed to do, to bring all of them together in a way that will gather the information and the resources necessary to combat fraud.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. That's great information. And before we jump into questions from our listeners, I do want to invite Clark Flint Barr from AARP Government Affairs. She's the Director on Financial Security to share more about AARP-endorsed fraud protection legislation that's making its way through Congress. So, Clark, what is the latest on legislation targeting fraud?
Thank you, Addison, and thank you to everyone who's joining us today. As Addison said, my name is Clark Flint Barr, and I'm a Government Affairs Director, and I focus on financial security and fraud prevention. As we've discussed already, fraud and scams are one of the biggest financial threats facing older Americans and really people of all ages. The FTC estimates that in 2024 alone, older adults had more than $80 billion stolen from them. And according to the FBI, the average loss for older adults was $83,000. That is a life-changing amount of money, and we must be doing everything we can to stop the scourge of fraud and scams. So at the federal level, AARP is working on several fronts to combat this problem. We're working with Congress, including the Stop Scams Caucus that the Congresswoman mentioned. We're very excited to see that. And we're working to strengthen the prevention of and the response to fraud and scams by ensuring that there are strong consumer protections in place in the financial services space, on social media platforms, in the telecom space to combat all of those scammy, looking at my cell phone, all the text messages and those scammy phone calls that everyone gets now. And to make sure that law enforcement has the training and tools that they need to investigate scams when they happen and hold bad actors accountable, and to make sure victims can get their money back. We're also working to improve coordination across federal agencies so that victims don't fall through the cracks. This is something that the strategic task force legislation that the Congresswoman mentioned would be key in making happen. And importantly, we're also focused on what happens after a scam, on making sure that victims get support, get clear information, and are treated fairly. So one piece of legislation I wanted to talk about is the Tax Relief for Victims of Crime, Scams, and Disasters Act. And we're very grateful that Congresswoman Houchin is a co-sponsor of this legislation. And the issue here is that today, when someone has money stolen from them in a scam, particularly when the money is taken out of a 401k or a brokerage account, they can face a second blow at tax season, which we're coming up on imminently, when they get a tax bill on the stolen funds. So when you withdraw money from your 401k, that's of course a taxable event and it's considered income. And so even if you don't have that money anymore, the IRS doesn't know that, and they will say you owe taxes on that. And so what we've seen is that many people who are already dealing with the emotional and financial fallout of having been scammed get hit with this huge tax bill. And then many people have to declare bankruptcy or sell their homes in order to pay the taxes on the stolen money. So this bill is really about fairness. It allows victims to deduct money that was stolen from them so that they do not owe taxes on that money. And this issue matters because fraud is really, as we've discussed, no longer rare or isolated. Scammers are organized, they're sophisticated, they're relentless, they have fancy technology now, and nobody should be forced to pay taxes on money that was stolen from them. It feels like double victimization to somebody who has just experienced a pretty traumatic situation. So at AARP, we're going to continue to work with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to strengthen fraud prevention, support victims, and make sure our policies really reflect today's realities. And we're very grateful to the Congresswoman for her leadership on this bill and her commitment to protecting constituents. So again, thank you for the opportunity to join, and I'll turn it back to you, Addison.
All right. Thank you so much, Clark. We really appreciate that. So let's shift and take some listener questions. As a reminder, this is an interactive telephone town hall meeting with Congresswoman Houchin, representing Indiana's 9th Congressional District. You can press *3 at any time to enter the queue to ask your question live. We did have a question from online that I wanted to ask. Congresswoman, curious about, you've introduced this legislation to start this task force. You're part of the Stop Scams Caucus. What's the most common scam targeting older adults right now? And what are the top warning signs everyone listening should be watching out for?
Yes, there are several that are floating around today. Imposter scams are one of the most emergent, which is someone pretending to be someone from the IRS or the Social Security office, or even a grandchild or a family member in trouble. There can be tech support scams, pop-ups that show up on your computer that say that your computer is infected, crypto and investment fraud, promising high returns. There's also utility shutoff scams. I recently had a family member who was targeted with a utility shutoff scam. You may get an email saying that your utilities are at risk of being eminently shut off if you don't pay a bill. When you try to pay the bill, which you shouldn't do, from an email asking you to do that, but they will say the payment didn't go through, please send it again. And before you know it, you're thousands of dollars lost to the scam. One of the things that I recommend, especially if scammers target you via email, which they often will do, and it will look legitimate, is to look at who the sender is. And if the sender is an odd email account that you don't recognize, and it's not something that you're normally used to receiving from some of these utility companies, then report that and do not respond, just delete it. There are AI voice scams too. So you may be called on the phone and someone can imitate a voice. Criminals are using AI to copy a loved one's voice. This is where the scams involving family members or grandchildren can be very scary. But always, if you suspect that it is fraud, report that to the police. Be cautious about giving any information. Don't give out any information over the phone. They are very, very sophisticated. And that's why we're trying to work on this task force so that everybody has the same information and then there aren't any gaps and that we can try to tackle this, because it really is difficult to try to catch and prosecute these overseas criminals when they are infiltrating especially our senior citizens who are most likely to fall victim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did have a question come through that I'd like to open it up to either of you. And Congressman, we can start with you. What is Congress doing right now to hold scammers and big companies accountable, especially those like phone companies or online platforms that scammers use to reach people? Is there anything being done in that space?
Yeah, we're continuing to work on that. Clark mentioned a few of the bills that we're working on, but it is a factor that these companies that platform some of these opportunities. We need to start having those conversations. We have reached out to Meta and asked them to report on what they're doing to combat fraud in order for us to get our hands around what we can be doing as policymakers to help support our seniors and our fraud victims. But email platforms, social media platforms, they are all creating opportunities for these scam artists to victimize people, and they do have a role to play in eliminating those from their platform. So reporting these things, but I want to be clear, do not ever give your personal information out over the phone. Don't give it your social security number, your bank number. Don't give bank account details to somebody who contacts you first. Just be very, very cautious when people are asking for personal information.
Yes, absolutely. Clark, did you have anything to add to that?
I think that Congresswoman gave a great summary on I think of fraud and scams as like several different buckets of policy issues. You've got the contact points, right? Like, how are the scammers reaching us? Just as she said, the emails, the phone calls, the text messages, social media, ads on online platforms, and really making sure that those companies are doing everything that they can and that they have an incentive to do everything they can to ensure that bad actors are not using their platforms to commit fraud. On the money moving side, the financial services industry has a very robust regulation. The Bank Secrecy Act has a lot of provisions around anti-money laundering and fraud. And so banks and other financial institutions are pretty used to doing surveillance and screening for illicit activity. But we've got all of these newer types of financial services, such as cryptocurrency platforms, or peer-to-peer platforms like PayPal or Venmo, where those protections might not be as robust. So I think there's more that could be done in that space as well. And then I think another issue on the investigation side of things is that state and local law enforcement, they're not used to having to investigate complex financial crimes, and they're not used to that falling to them, but increasingly it is. And so making sure that state and local law enforcement really have the tools and the training that they need so that they can conduct investigations when people come to them and report scams and fraud is really key.
There's also an emerging threat, I would say, from some scams originating from China. And that is, you'll see an ad for something, maybe even on one of your news platform apps or online, and the ad looks really for something that might be very attractive to you to purchase. You go on and you make the purchase and your item never arrives. So then you've given them all of your bank account information. So always be cautious with those online ads and verify through additional searches before you make those purchases, because they look like legitimate items you can buy, but really it's just a shell website designed to take your credit card information.
Right. That's a fantastic point. I see we're getting some listener calls right now. I do want to encourage folks to press *3 at any time during the call to enter the queue to ask your question live. So you can press *3 on your keypad and we can connect you with our guest today. I did have another question come through just asking, so much of, frauds and scams, it's part of the victim aspect of it and falling victim to this. And I think what we're trying to do is prove that it's this isn't, you're not duped for falling victim to a scam, or we need to kind of change the language and how we talk about being a victim of a fraud or scam, because it is very much a criminal act, and any victim of a crime should be kind of treated with respect in that sense. So I was curious if either of you, starting with the Congresswoman, have you ever had firsthand experience with fraud or scams, and how important do you think it is to shift the conversation about these schemes so victims feel supported and empowered?
Yeah, I have not personally been a victim of a scam, but I have been. Many attempts have been made via email on some of these online platforms. I have heard of, it's very easy to get duped by these scams. They do look legitimate, so you have to be very careful. But one of the things with especially phone or text scams is if you didn't initiate that, then that's probably something you should be skeptical of, as well as government agencies reaching out. They'll not call and demand immediate payments. Especially sometimes these links will look like they go to official websites. So it's very easy to fall into this. It's something that can be very common. I had an aunt that fell victim to this. Another one that had gone to purchase a gift card to make a payment when she called me just to verify that what she was being asked to do was legitimate. So I would say if you're a senior citizen and you've got younger family members that you can reach out to, or AARP, reach out to your network to verify before you take any action, especially to give out personal information. It is very, very easy to be duped by these scammers.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Congresswoman. And we do have a caller with a question that I'm gonna put on live here. Hi, it looks like we have a caller, Mary. Mary, are you on the line?
Yes, it's Mary Ellen.
Hi, Mary. Yeah, go ahead with your question.
Hi. Yeah, I'm a fraud victim from New Albany, Indiana, and I wanted to thank Congressman Houchin for co-sponsoring the Tax Relief for Victims of Crime, Scams, and Disasters Act. I have been to her office in Salem and actually visited with Harris and Kisper in your office in Washington, D.C. Last May. So I want to thank you for signing on. I'm trying to understand, where is that in the process? What is the hope? How aware are Congress people in the D.C. area? And is there any chance of this moving forward this year? What's the timeline on this?
Thank you for
help we can get.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's always helpful, and I appreciate your advocacy coming out to the DC office and to the district office. That was always very helpful for us. These things are not abstract, they're very personal. And so the more advocacy, not just to my office, because you don't have to sell me on the value of what we're doing legislatively on this tax issue, but encouraging other people to reach out to their members of Congress too. And I know AARP is engaged in that. To get critical mass of support to push this issue, there are many things that we can do, and we are doing all at the same time. It doesn't have to be just a one lane, or we can only do one piece of legislation at a time, but it will take a push from many members. This, I believe, is and I would defer to Clark on I think this is in the jurisdiction of the Ways and Means Committee, where I'm not on that committee, so I would defer to her on where that is in process.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Yes, the Tax Relief for Victims of Crime, Scams, and Disasters Act has been introduced both in the House and in the Senate. And the Congresswoman is right, it was referred to the Ways and Means Committee because it is a tax bill in the House, and then the Finance Committee, which is their counterpart in the Senate. The bill is bipartisan and bicameral, and it's up to several dozen co-sponsors in the House right now, which is very exciting. And it's a very bipartisan list of co-sponsors. So I think right now our focus has been building more support, getting more co-sponsors on, because the most common response I get when I talk to people about this is, like, what do you mean fraud victims have to pay taxes on money that was stolen from them? Like, people just can't imagine that's not an issue that we have not already addressed. So I think building the awareness that this is a problem and that it's a problem that's affecting many, many fraud victims is our big focus right now.
When AARP brought this issue to me and brought this to our attention, and it might have even been Mary Ellen's advocacy too, that said, wait, this is an issue. It honestly, this is going to sound odd, but it reminded me of the movie Liar, Liar, when someone broke into her home and got injured and she had to pay for his medical bills. Like, it's just defies logic that we would have our victims having to pay the taxes on something that was stolen from them. So I absolutely want to see this legislation move, and I have been and will continue to be advocating for its passage.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to both of you. Appreciate that. We have time for additional listener questions. So if anyone on the call is curious and wants to raise your question to the Congresswoman or Clark, you can press *3 at any time to be entered into the queue to ask your question live on air. So you can hit *3 at any time. I'm going to take another question that we have from online. You know, in my introduction, I talked a lot about cryptocurrency scams. We've heard a lot about those lately. Can one of you explain why crypto kiosks and ATMs are so dangerous, and how this new Indiana law helps protect people? Clark, maybe we can start with you on that one.
Sure, thank you, Addison. So crypto ATMs, if you've never seen one before, they look kind of similar to regular bank ATMs. Often they look a little bit more techy, digital, and they're often in convenience stores, gas stations. There's one in my grocery store, corner stores, sometimes restaurants. I saw one at a golf course recently, which kind of made me laugh, but I shouldn't be laughing, because really what's happening with these machines is they're being used primarily by criminals who are directing victims who don't know what these machines are to send funds through them. And the reason that this is particularly dangerous is because once the money is fed into the machine, and that's what you do, you literally feed cash into the machine, like $20 bills into this machine, and you give it a digital address that you're going to send the money to. And for fraud victims, that's going to be a digital address that the criminal has provided you. Say, for example, maybe they were pretending to be the IRS, or they were pretending to be a courts administrator and said you owed a fine because you missed jury duty. Those are both pretty common cryptocurrency kiosk or cryptocurrency ATM scams. Once you feed that money in and hit go, you can't claw it back. That money is gone. And while law enforcement might be able to trace the money and figure out where it went, that doesn't mean that they'll be able to recover it necessarily. And so it's really become this method that scammers are using to very quickly move large amounts of money, often abroad. And that just is, it's kind of the perfect storm, right, of fraud.
Definitely. Yeah, Congresswoman, do you have a perspective on that?
I was just going to say cryptocurrency is largely untraceable. So once it transfers into a cryptocurrency, it is very difficult to claw that back. It's much harder to do that than it is, say, if you were to get scammed on your credit card and could be able to put a stop to that. Crypto kiosk scams have cost Americans $333 million. Indiana was may have been the first state in the nation to adopt a law banning cryptocurrency kiosks. AARP Indiana and state leaders deserve a lot of credit for for moving that legislation forward and really leading to protect consumers against this type of fraud.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for saying that. We really appreciate it. Yeah, we're very excited about that law passing. I do have another caller on the line, Teresa, who is with us. Let me put her on. Hi, Teresa.
Hello.
Are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, please go ahead with your question.
Okay, I'm on Social Security, and I don't feel like it was the right thing. And I did this through Social Security on the telephone. Should I have went to the office? Is that kind of a fraud thing? And how do we know if we're getting the right representation?
Sure.
Teresa, did they contact you or did you reach out to them first?
Teresa's no longer on the line, Congresswoman, but it sounds like from my notes that she was contacted by the Social Security office.
I would encourage her, if she's still listening, to reach out to our district office. That would be, 288-5999, I think is the phone number, 812-288-5999. We'll get that for you guys if you can share that with Teresa. Contact the district office and ask for Amelia Voiles, and we can run down whether or not that was a legitimate request and make sure that if it's not, we get it reported to the authorities. And you can always feel free, if you contact AARP, contact our office if you feel like you've been a victim of fraud. Contact your bank or financial institution immediately if you think you've been a victim. You can file a report with the Federal Trade Commission. That is reportfraud.ftc.gov. You can also file a police report, and of course, contact our congressional office so we can help you navigate the federal agencies and try to help out if you've been a victim.
Great. Thank you so much. I did have another sort of an adjacent question to that. Folks on the call are describing getting phone calls or text messages saying they're, a representative from their bank or government. How can listeners tell if these messages are real or a scam? And really, what should they do if they're not sure?
Well, if they did not initiate that, they should absolutely be skeptical. If they did not initiate contact, and some government agencies just calling them out of the blue. Government agencies do not call you and demand payment. Do not click on any links that you get in text messages. Go to the official website. If there is a problem with your account and you go to the official website, or you contact them, not the phone number that you're given, but the official phone number for your regular business. And always, I would recommend reaching out to our office if you feel like it's not legitimate. But if you did not initiate the contact, that's a reason to be skeptical. And do not click on links that you're sent, especially via text message. Go directly to those websites, the official websites, for more information, and definitely don't give any personal information over the phone or over text, including your Social Security number and your banking information.
Perfect. Thank you, Congresswoman. Clark, did you want to add anything to that?
I agree with everything the Congresswoman said. One thing I would add is that we're also seeing a really big uptick in recovery scams. So if you have been the victim of scams or fraud, it's really important to be extra cautious, because scammers will resell the information, or they'll just start a new scam on the same person who they had been victimizing before. of scam and fraud victims. And so what will happen is they will call, they will pretend to be law enforcement, they'll pretend to be attorneys, they'll pretend to be regulators, and say they're working on your case. I think it's really important in those instances as well to not give out any personal information, to say, you know what, you can make up an excuse even, the connection is bad, let me call you back. And then look up the official number for whatever agency that was, and just verify that you're actually talking to somebody who is investigating your case and working on your case, because recovery scams have become a big issue.
Another thing to look for is if they won't let you get off the phone, if they won't let you call them back, and even some sophisticated scammers will let you call them back, but you should verify that the phone number is actually for the official agency or the office. But if they will not let you get off the phone to do any kind of verification, that should be a sign that you should be skeptical of.
Great point. Great points all around. Well, thank you so much. This has really been an excellent conversation. Congresswoman, really appreciate that. You describing how Congress is working to protect consumers from fraud and scams. And Clark, thank you so much for your comments. On behalf of AARP Indiana, I want to say thank you to everyone for taking part in today's telephone town hall. Unfortunately, I think we're almost out of time for today's call. I appreciate everyone's terrific questions, especially constituents talking about their real life experiences. We always appreciate that. If we're unable to get to any questions today that you have, you can definitely stay on the line and leave us a voicemail with your question or comment. You can also obtain valuable information through our Fraud Watch network. We have a frequently asked questions section you can find at aarp.org/fraud. So I'd like to personally thank Congresswoman Houchin for joining us today. And Congresswoman, as we near the end of the call, is there anything that you would like to follow up on that's been discussed today, or share anything in your closing remarks?
Just to please reach out to our office if we can be helpful. I want to reiterate that we're available to help people through this. Sometimes you may have seen that we do send some text messages, but if you ever have a question, please contact our office, and we would be happy to be helpful.
Appreciate that. Well, thank you again, Congresswoman Houchin, for your insights and just being so generous with your time today. And Clark, thank you for your time and expertise as well. I do want to encourage listeners to visit AARP's Fraud Watch network to learn more about ways to protect you and your family from scams at aarp.org/fraud. If you suspect a scam, you can report it through our Fraud Watch network scam tracking map, which is shows geographically where scams are occurring, or you can report it on our helpline at 877-908-3360. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.